coming to you from the all-new Live House in Hollywood, California.
Hi, family. Welcome to this week's episode of Pensado's Place. You're going to meet our guest in a minute, and they epitomize the family that rocks together, stays together. But first, how would you like to take a trip this summer to the biggest gear party in the country for free?
I would.
Dave would like to go, and I know a lot of other people like you guys would like to go. So we've joined our friends at Sweetwater for the Go to Gear Fest giveaway. It's an all-expense-paid trip for one lucky winner and a companion to the annual Gear Fest. It's held on this unbelievable Sweetwater campus. It's completely amazing. Free travel, 3 days in a hotel, $200 in gift cards so you can grub up and party and have a good time. Plus, you'll attend the Pensado live appearance. Come hang with Dave and I backstage so we can meet you. GearFest has major artists performing, producers, engineers, cutting-edge gear, classes, all kinds of stuff, and your chance to enjoy the festivities, rub shoulders, and meet everybody. It's kind of like the Coachella of audio, and you should attend if you can. Here's how easy it is. To enter, click the link you see right there, submit your email. You got 4 weeks to get that email in, and then we'll pick a winner and we'll announce it on air, and then we will see you at the Sweetwater campus. Don't delay. You want to do that. And also do us a favor. While you sign up for GearFest Getaway, also sign up for our newsletter so we can keep you up to speed. And just because you're awesome, please like, subscribe, and right here, click notify. And we thank you for that. On a more serious note, we want to acknowledge the passing of Nipsey Hussle, an artist who worked tirelessly to better his community, provide training and opportunity, and just never left home. Our good buddy Rance Dobson of 1500 produced his last Grammy-nominated album, Victory Lap. Plus, Nipsey taught at the 1500 Sound Academy. A senseless tragedy gone too soon. What do you think, DP?
And I wish I could have known him. He was a light where there was some darkness, you know, and that light got snuffed out. I'd heard about him for a while, and our paths never crossed, and I regret that I never made the effort.
I met him once at the Academy. You could just sort of see the light around him, but I didn't know the details, and to see all the accolades from all the different places. I know the day after this senseless tragedy, he was supposed to meet with the police commissioner, police chief, to talk about how to reduce gang violence and all that kind of stuff. You know, the one thing that is for sure is we can find other ways to settle a dispute. True. You know what I mean? Like there's different options, and we should think about it. So, you know, use your common sense, use restraint, and then we don't have to deal with these tragedies. To his family, we send you love and support. And to Nipsey Hussle, rest in peace. So now to our guests, man. I was thinking about it a lot, and once you read about them, you can't help but use the word multiple. You're talking about multiple platinum and gold awards and nominations, multiple Junos, which is Canada's Grammy, multiple Doves, and also in multiple categories. They themselves are a multiple because they are father and son. Please welcome to the desk, Kevin and Kane Churko. Welcome.
Nice to be here.
Good to have you. Cool.
What's up? Churko's in the house.
Pleasure to be here,
Good
guys.
to see you guys.
How did this Canadian takeover of rock happen? Originally from Saskatchewan, correct?
Yep.
Now live in Vegas.
Yep.
And the incredible studio with Hideaway is there, correct?
The Hideout.
Hideout, sorry.
Yep.
And then there was a detour to Switzerland for a minute with Mutt Lange, correct? For both of you at the same time.
Yep.
Talk about that and how it affected you.
Well, I think for me, like my brother played in the Shania Twain band, and so he was privy to the fact that Mutt had been looking for a new guy, and I'd been just purely doing studio stuff at that point, like after my band days, and you know, had the family and was just kind of centralized. And of course, he was one of my heroes of all time, and so this just could not have worked out better. You know, by the time he called me just to come out there and say hi, it was very, we're not working, we're just saying hi kind of thing, and. You know, because whoever works with them for many hours every day, all day, next day, all day, you know. So, you know, like myself too, or us, you know, we want to like the people we're working with. So I just kind of hung out with him for a weekend first. He flew me back home again, and then you know, a month or two later, called me again. Do you want to come out here and try it for a reel? So I said, let me check my schedule. 1001.
Exactly.
I can go. Yeah, absolutely. Mutt has a reputation for enhancing the groove like nobody else can. Were you a part of any of that, and how did he do it, if you can say so? I mean,
well, unfortunately, I can't because I have to kill you. No, that's even a bad joke. But yeah, I mean, here's the thing about all the records, which you would know this, of course. Every record he does feels fantastically awesome, and that's one of the keys. And he's exceptionally focused on it. And generally, I mean, I can only speak about the records I've done with him, and his process may have changed, you know, from album to album, decade to decade, you know, hit album to hit album. But he's just, nothing really happens on his records that he didn't control, change, modify, you know. I mean, he really, I mean, his artists are great, you know, I'm not taking anything away from any of them, but he's really the mastermind.
It feels like a lot of us stop when it's perfect, and that's kind of where he takes over. And whatever it is that Mutt does, that's, I'm sure if she told us exactly what he did, we still couldn't do it because it's a function of who he is and what he wants to hear. But his records have a feel that nobody, like the Def Leppard stuff, all the stuff, the Cars, all his records have great feel. Yeah,
I don't think most people wouldn't want to make records like that, and even some of the people he worked with probably didn't want to make records like that, and definitely wouldn't want to now. But the proof is undeniable. And the fact that he's had hit, I don't know, 4 or 5 decades, like monster records from Back in Black to the Coming Over record, I mean, hit after hit. And for me as a drummer, I mean, it really worked well, and that's one of the reasons why he hired me too, was because I was, that's a great picture, because he hired me, and as a drummer, as a timer, he knew, okay, I'm a drummer, I must have some sense of time, and so I was easily trainable. And, you know, he gave me a lot of those kind of gifts, those time gifts that I learned from him, and it's not just about the drumming, it's about every piece of the puzzle. No detail is too small, no hit is inconsequential. If it's inconsequential, take it out, mute it. If it's not important, if it's not focusing everything up to the top of that pyramid, then it shouldn't even be in there.
Did you, because that's what his records feel like. There's an exactness to it, but it doesn't get in the way of you feeling it, like feeling like the pocket is there and other kinds of stuff. And you sort of appreciate the excellence of it somehow. The song doesn't get lost, the artist doesn't get lost, but there's a machinery to it that's going. Kane, what did you get from you went over there, you were a teenager at the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, those are the years that I started using Pro Tools and recording music and engineering, I suppose, and whatnot. So, you know, Dad would bring equipment home from Mutt's place, whatever editing rig they weren't using or something, and
there you'd go.
One piece of gear at a time until I figured out how to use that, and then he'd bring the next thing and keep unlocking.
And I take it back, of course, too.
Keep unlocking the next the next piece of the puzzle and stuff. But I mean, a lot of obviously Mutt's philosophy was instilled in Dad, and I think he's instilled lots of that same sort of thinking and attention to detail and just treating everything important and really caring about every note.
And what's interesting is that in the specific field, that, you know, you guys have made these definitive marks in the rock world. I mean, Papa Roach, Ozzy Osbourne, Five Finger Death Punch. There's just so many artists that the Churko signature, whatever it is, has happened. And you also have multiple hats. In your case, you'd be a producer, you might be an engineer, you might be mixing, you might be a songwriter, it might be... So do you have a preference for one or the other, or does it just come up as it's needed?
Well, I think being from, you know, Moose Jaw is a small town. There's 35,000 people there, and it's a great town to live in. And the music world is awesome. But I think in that world, you don't always have specialists like you have in the States. So you just learn to do whatever it takes to get the job done. So you don't have anybody to call. There wasn't a phone a friend. There wasn't the internet back in those days. You just got to figure it out.
Right.
So I think because of that, you know, I brought a certain value to an artist, different value to each artist. So some artists I might write a little more, some I write a little less. I just look at the project and go, okay, how can I make this better? And if making it better just recording the magic, then I'll do that. If making it better is helping to write a song, I'll do that. If making it better is getting a better performance out of it, a better mix than they could do on their own, I mean, it's really about sort of filling in the weak points in order to make everything as strong as I can. So. Because I did a lot of everything kind of okay, I could do that, you know.
And it's become, you know, part of your trademark now.
Yeah, and I love it. I love all those elements. I don't think, in fact, the projects I only take projects I can contribute in all those ways because that's where I get my fun.
It's probably more stimulative and probably one serves the other too,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely. Even just being involved as a songwriter first, and then engineer, then producer, then mixer on a project. I mean, so much about making a good mix. I mean, is really having a song that has the right kind of space within it and the right kind of arrangement. And I find, I mean, you're probably similar when I don't have a hand in every one of those steps.
Wait a minute.
Somehow I have an arm behind my back.
You ain't gonna disrespect the old folk like that. You looked at him and said, "I'm guessing you're like this." Made you. Of course you're.
Well, I think it's also gives us an insight and an appreciation of. It gives us a great appreciation of, you're generally do more mixing than anything else, and it's like. It's hard mixing somebody else's stuff.
Yeah.
It really is. And you got to be really, really good, completely, a champion at mixing to mix someone else's stuff. For me, I know by the time I start a project or end one, it's like all my decisions are made. I mean, nothing, it just keeps on evolving till the end and then we're done.
Yeah.
And I have dabbled at mixing other people's stuff in the past, and it's always, it's always a little bit frustrating to me because, if you have a heavy guitar part and then put a light string line on it at the same time, how am I going to bring that out? How am I going to make that happen? They're not, the producer's not really thinking about these things. So I find a lot. And so I tend not to do that because I tend to just work on my own stuff because it's a little bit more kind of rewarding at the
And what a great luxury.
Kane, from your perspective, how has and by the way, you're blessed to have a father like you do. I wish I'd had that. But from your perspective, how are you using social media in a way that's uniquely you, and how are you teaching that to Dad?
Sure. I mean, I think
He is totally teaching me those things, by the way. I actually resist a lot.
I mean, obviously, I had the advantage of kind of, his experience and and whatnot, and I was actually handling a lot of his social media before I was even handling my own.
Okay.
So it gave me I got to see the results with him of what it meant to make sure your credits are listed properly, to make sure you're on Wikipedia if you should be, or like all that kind of stuff. And I could see the immediate result of people emailing him because of being inserted into some of those spots. And
So you take it pretty serious.
I helped build his early websites and all that kind of stuff. I don't do that anymore, but I take it seriously. I mean, I think especially now where everyone has access to a lot of the same equipment, a lot of the same tools, plugins, personal branding and kind of distinguishing yourself is a big part of making sure hopefully you bring something unique and not offering the same thing as the next guy.
Is Instagram where you do most of that, or?
I'm sorry?
Is Instagram where you do most of that?
I think Instagram's really, really big for that. I mean, it's Instagram and Facebook. Shows like this, getting to talk about how you make records and giving people a sense of who you are and whether they want to spend 3 months in a room with you or not. And I think more and more I see clients come to us not just for what we do, but they'll see an interview or they'll read something. They'll be like, "I love what you said about this and what your philosophy is," and I think that's awesome.
That's cool.
And just so you know how well it works, I'm going to give you a little story. The first time we went to NAMM, first time I'm going to NAMM, first time he's going to NAMM, we're walking down, one of the many walkways, and I have all these people coming towards me, and I'm in my mind there, okay, here it comes. Now they're going to come up and ask me all these questions, and it's going to be, "Hey, Kevin, can you answer this question?" Walk right past me and walk right up to him. How did that happen?
But part of that, the T-shirt. I got my
branding down.
I got my branding down. It's my costume. People see me walking around at NAMM. They're like, "That's that Eat Sleep Produce a Pete shirt guy."
That's not so bad, actually.
And all I have is a beard, not even as good as Andrew Sheps's. So
but uniquely yours.
He's got a good looking beard.
Is there, particularly in the rock space, and given the age difference, not just that your parent, my guess is that, and this is a guess, that analog is a space that you came up in, lived and learned, and digital is a space that you're comfortable with, right? Is that true, and how does it apply in that world in such a way? Because you can't have inauthentic rock, right? It's got to... If you don't feel it, I know when I'm rocking out in my car and people pull up beside me and they see this old black dude, headbanging. Like, what's going on here? But I always love the power of rock, and there's a lot of rock that's really funky underneath, really funky, particularly from a drummer standpoint. So analog digital, talk about from the digital standpoint how you.
Yeah, I mean, I completely started Pro Tools, day one.
Well, cakewalk technically.
Probably cakewalk
Showing your age.
As a precursor to that, but I mean, I'm 33 now, and I've been using Pro Tools since I was 14, version 4 or 5, and that it was game changing to me as a songwriter. I mean, I had 4-track demos and stuff before that, and I'd done a little bit of that, but to then have Pro Tools and be able to program something and put drums down by myself and then play bass by myself, and couldn't even play bass, but I could go, stop,
right,
move it over. Stop, move it over, and I mean, it was the best thing in the world. All of a sudden, the options were unlimited, and it was just a matter of how much time you want to spend to get to where you want to go.
And no compromise on the sound, no compromise on the.
I mean, I guess if there was, I wasn't conscious of it and didn't matter to me. I'm probably more always musically focused and emotionally focused than I am romantic about a particular piece of gear or a way of doing something. I think a lot of my education was actually by having a limited amount of stuff. We had one microphone.
That's a great point.
One microphone for a decade. I had one guitar for a decade. I figured out how to make that one guitar cable and that one microphone and that one guitar
do a whole bunch
and make a record with that. And at a time where people still then were like, no, you can't do it all in the box yet.
Right.
Like even myself as a kid then was like, no, I can't do it on the box yet, because the pros, they go work in real studios and have consoles and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, here I am 18 years later doing the exact same thing I was doing when I was 14.
Has the digital world crept into your recording process?
Yeah, I mean, similar to his, obviously I'm from a different generation, not that much older of a generation. But obviously I'm the transition generation, I like to call myself. I started on analog days. I remember the first time I cut my double kick drums on 2-inch tape and tore the tape and crinkled it all and had to figure out in a panic how to get this to work there again, by the time the band got in the next day. So, I started in that world, how to sync the two 24 tracks up, because 24 tracks aren't enough. I mean, and then transitioned to the digital world, but very quickly, I ran a Pro Tools rig before I had a computer. I mean, I had no money. I didn't have a word processor or anything. I showed up at a studio one day to do a session. They had a 4-channel Pro Tools rig, and I spent a half day on that going, not even thinking about the sound quality, just looking at, how it's able to visually do things and how I can move all these parts around and how I can record even more vocals now, and it's easier to comp and all those kind of things. And then came in the next day, and none of my files were in the right place, and I couldn't find it. I had to fill note and go, I can't find anything else. But that was in the days before, when it was a little tougher than it is now. And so, but that was a momentous day for me. I still remember thinking, this is a future right here. How is it not going to keep going this
it's not
way?
going to go backwards.
I'd like for both of you to answer this. What's your take on software amplifiers? Would you ever, either one of you, take a direct signal into Pro Tools and only amp it through a virtual amp, or you always have to have an outboard real amp in some point? Can you live with just a virtual amp, software amp in your world? You first.
I have to answer that one first?
Yeah.
I know what he's going to say. I think you guys know. I mean, let me give you my disclaimer at this point in time that right now I'm more results focused from a producer-songwriter point of view than any kind of audio purist point of view.
What does that mean? Yes?
Meaning that yes,
Okay.
I can. And, I mean, I've seen the show, so I know, and I don't discount your opinion. And I mean, when I recorded Zakk Wylde, I mean, first, there wasn't a camper in those days,
Yeah,
but
that's an exception.
he's got the master sound. Yeah. He's got, it's him. It's like, it's just an extension of his
Just
being.
capture what's in the room.
Just don't mess it up. That's all you got to do is just don't mess it up. And so that's much different than taking a new band and developing a sound. But generally, my flow process has been originally, real guitars or amps for rhythms and that kind of thing. And then I'd go into the box more, or whether it's plug-in or an actual guitar box, for the specials. Like for the things that aren't so naturally driven, whether it's a organ type sound or just a spatial sound effect, because then you're not trying to recreate anything. You're creating something new. But when you're recreating something, how can you get any better than the original version? And in many ways, I still think like that. But as a practicality, I'm also a man of trial and error and a man of, let's call, surveys. So many times in the past, while I was deciding my flow, I had a guy bring it that wanted to use his amp. He brought it in. We made that. I gave 110%, making that sound as good as I possibly can. And then we did the old Kemper test, the A/B test. I profiled that amp, and then we did the A/B test. And first of all, we went for lunch so that our ears would kind of clear out, and we're not really in any zone. And we come back from lunch and kind of get focused. And then I go here, and his amp's cranking the whole time, so we can feel a little bit of the bottom end. But here, this one, this one, this one. And if the guy chooses the profiler over 60% of the time,
the Kemper profiler is a beast of a piece of
even
equipment.
if I'm romantic about using a real amp, the data says he didn't care, or rather in some ways he liked the Kemper more because it kind of, even to me, it kind of made it slightly just a little bit more crunchier, which may be a good thing for some sounds and maybe a bad thing for some sounds. So I'm not saying no matter what, that should be everybody's flow. I'm saying for me, it's easier like that. Because also I'm the kind of producer that works circularly, so I may come back to that song in 3 months' time and want to punch in one chord that I decided to change. And, I got to keep much more documentation. I got to make sure the mic hasn't changed. I got to make sure the tube's just as hot as it was then. There's so many things to just punch in that one chord.
Kane?
Yeah, you got me right. You got me pegged. I love amp sims.
What are your favorites? Source? Ones
I love the Kemper. That's probably my go-to on the regular for like rhythm guitars and stuff.
Scuff them, you use that much?
And whatnot. But I do use some of the other amp sims like Helix and Bias. And I love experimenting with stuff. So even if there's something new that I don't use often, every now and again I like to just let's see what happens when I try to make an accident with this.
Because sometimes accidents become signatures.
Oh yeah,
totally.
And you have to. We always talk to the audience about embracing an accident.
Yeah.
Sometimes that unfortunate thing may be the best thing that ever happened to you in that record.
He's been making accidents all his life. He'll mix something or start working the track I'm working on, and in the early days, not so much now, and I get it back. And the gain structure is all messed up, and there's no unity gain, and he's clipping this and doing that, and then so I straighten it all out, of course, and then listen to it the next day in AB, and wait a minute, his sounds better than mine.
Right?
How does that happen? And then you get confused, and then you got to learn. It's not always about right and wrong. It's about what are you hearing, what sounds good, what doesn't.
Certainly not about being exact.
Yeah, I definitely don't care about rules. I'm not romantic. I'd rather almost try to do the wrong thing to see if it does something different than I've done before, in a way.
One of the things that, in my observation, particularly in the rock space and some other genres, it's still where the art form of tracking exists. Setting up people who are playing live, capturing it properly, doing the kind of things. And that art form is not the same in other genres. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to. Is that a premium thing that you need to learn and really understand and capture properly? Because if you don't capture it properly, you can't record it properly, correct? Is that correct?
Well, my most important role, I find, is producer. And that means taking responsibility of the end product, no matter what. If I can find somebody better to do it than me and have the budget for it, I'll do that. If I don't have the budget for it, I'll do the best that I can. But at the top of that whole list is the performance of the musician and the player.
Exactly.
And at the top of that whole list is the vocalist. Everything is about that. Everything is subservient to that. It's like a pyramid. The vocal's here. By the time, the drums are way down here, still important, still holding everything up, but without that top peak, it's not a pyramid.
Right.
That sounds like a completely bad analogy here. But,
no, but it's important.
But, that's how much importance, and it's almost like I'll try to get the final vocal as quickly as I can, and then work backwards from that. What supports that? What makes that better? And
so
once
that
it doesn't make
standard,
it better,
and then you can work toward that.
Yeah.
Same with you?
Yeah, very similar. I think that's also the benefit of doing all the different roles from songwriting to mixing. I think in my earlier days, I was still figuring out engineering, but I was almost better at mixing before I was an engineer. So I could, I knew I could kind of fix certain things and fudge some things while I was still learning, some proper fundamentals. Now I'm a better engineer, and I my mixes are easier, you know, and I have to do less on those. But definitely having a good source and being conscientious from the get-go, I think, is crucial.
Which hat do you like the most of the multiple ones you wear?
The beginning and the end. I like songwriting and mixing probably as far as the most fun I have. You know,
Gotcha.
You know, engineering probably the least fun. That's the most work.
Because it's real work, yeah.
Right.
You know, and it's a slower pace. You know, you're hearing the same take over and over and over and over and over, and mixing, you're just blowing through it and kind of having fun with it and going on the ride, and you don't have to go on the ride the next day necessarily.
Unless you're me, I gotta keep going.
From your perspective, because both of you have different perspectives, and I love getting both. I think it's fair to say that rock's kind of I don't know quite the verb to use or the adverb, but it's not like it used to be. You know, it's when you look at the Spotify numbers, it's a very small group of people that still are passionate about rock. Why is that, and what can be changed about it? I mean, like, you're the generation that kind of rejected it.
Yeah,
totally. Why is it? Because is it because they didn't embrace technology soon enough, or what is it, you think?
I think that's part of it. When I think of 14-year-old Kane and what he didn't like about rock music, it didn't seem maybe as sincere in my era as a kid. But you know, whether I'm thinking of certain classic rock bands or like let's say even hair metal or something like that. I mean, that always looked like Spinal Tap to me and seemed goofy. I suppose, and I think rock kind of took a page out of country music's book for a while, where it sort of almost wanted to get. It didn't want to change. And for a long while, and almost wanted to stick to the fundamentals and be like, well, a band can only be like this and be, you know, and everything. And I think that's changing now, and I think we're going to see that change. And I think as a generation defines it differently, you know, rock band doesn't, or a metal band or whatever, doesn't have to be just Pantera or something, or you know, or something like that. Now, I mean, to me, a rock band just has to have a guitar in it, you know, and it just has to have the attitude of rock and roll, the soul of it, the lyrical content, the
lifestyle like we were talking
about, the rebellion,
about.
and
that's important.
And to me, it's just as heavy to put some distortion on a synth and say something purposeful and awesome like Nine Inch Nails or Trent Reznor or someone would, as it is to scream something and play out of an amp.
Well, you got to be proud of him. That's a deep answer I wasn't quite expecting. But boy, you enlightened me. Thank you, because I grew up in the rock era, and some people think I grew up in the big band era, but I didn't. But I do miss it. I do miss the feeling I used to get from it, and I have substitutes now. Yeah. But yeah, good answer.
I think everyone likes that feeling. You know, I think. It almost became a little bit exclusionary unless you know, looked like a rock fan, you weren't a rock fan, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And I think nowadays kids are less conscious of that, and it just isn't as it's not going to be as cliquey of a genre. And I think as long as a few, you know, handful of pioneers can hopefully treat it like, let's compete with pop music instead of just within rock music against other rock bands. You know, it's like a band should be coming up and thinking, how do I compete with Drake or Katy Perry or whatever? Not
That's
just
cool.
How do I compete with 10% or 5% or 10% of music?
It's an interesting point you make, because I always find that, or I've found that the exclusionary aspects of music in different genres, could be hip hop, could be pop, could be rock, could be whatever, sometimes becomes the death of the genre itself. Like in trying to be so proud and saying, well, this genre isn't cool, or being popular music isn't cool, or so on. I was like, how could it not be cool to have your music be popular? You know, if you just simplify it and stop putting all the extra kind of what are lifestyle and sort of, and some of that has to do with age and social media and, you know, wanting to be part of the big group as opposed to standing out. Because I think rock music is out there, but it's just whether it's popular or not on a large scale. Yeah. And some people define that as it not being worthy, when you just have to go find it and then find the stuff in it that's good. And it's there's a weird dynamic where we we kind of eat our own sometimes. How do you feel about, because we saw it, we I'm sure you guys do too, we see it in the country space where you see these hybrids of things, you know, Florida Georgia Line and Nelly, and when people start to put different things together to try to find something else. Is that something rock music does, should do?
I mean, it's something I love, so it's something, you know, I think
good enough,
it's
the way
something
you've been
it's something
answering
I think it should do, and I've always approached it that way. I mean, I never bought metal records growing up. I've probably bought 5 rock records in my whole life, and they're not cool ones. and you know, but that's, I think where you know, in some ways, both of us, I think we approach the genre with a different mentality. We're not already attached to it in a certain sense. I just want to get everyone else to like it that doesn't already.
Now, when you work, do you also work in the Hideout as well?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Tell us about the studio, because it's like a...
Well, you know,
kind of gears in it?
It began as a 4-room studio. Now we've kind of expanded with some edit rooms too. So it's like 6 rooms.
Nice.
2 fairly large rooms with SSLs, and then 2 smaller rooms, but awesome rooms with all the same, you know, redundancy computers, and so you can move around from room to room, record drums in one room, go to cheaper vocal overdubs in another room, so you're not blowing your budget. You know, I mean, we almost have 2 businesses. So there's our business of producing records, which doesn't really interfere, and then the studio business with just people hiring studio time, right? And so Kane kind of has his room locked down, but for me, I kind of move around for whatever I need. And my boss, which is my daughter who runs the studio, she keeps kicking me out of different rooms so that she can sell studio time to somebody else. So I had to be a little more flexible in some ways than Kane, but you know, we had built a previous studio and it was 1,500 square feet, and this studio we bought, and it was like 13,000 square feet, so it's a completely different beast. And
that's old school, man.
it is. I mean, it really is kind of, you know, one of the last new old school studios, I would call it, because when they built it, they built it, I think, in about 2006, I believe, or 2007. They were building it like it was like 1986 or 1995. Just, you know, and, you know, studios have changed, but we're lucky that, you know, we brought lots of the newer technology into it, but kept a lot of the old stuff too. So when people like Carlos Santana comes in, he feels comfortable. People can mix on the 9K and feel comfortable with that versus just mixing in the box. I mean, you can really almost do whatever you want. Great selection of old gear as well as new gear. I mean, everything from a, you know, a U47s, 48s, you know, all the way up to a slate mic. If you're comfortable with that, you've done some tracking at home, want to come in and just change a couple things, I mean, you're able to do it. So.
Oh, very cool. What do you monitor?
Well, in most of the rooms I work, so I have some ATC 45s, which I love.
I like those.
I thought you probably would when you were talking about your mid bumpy, like, which for me is great tracking guitar players too, because it is a little bit more MIDI, and their guitar just pops out, so it's louder without me having to crank it louder for those guys. And then I have some MKs too, that, you know, me personally, I go back and forth between them because they're 2 opposite ones. So it's like I got the best of both worlds. I just know the MKs more because I've been using them a long, long time. Nobody else uses them really, as far as I know, except for me, but I don't care about that. I just know how they sound. I listen to my stuff on radio, TV, whatever. I just know them. It's like an NS10, except it's an awesome NS10.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And the ATC 45s are a great new addition too. So on my rooms, I just use those. But we have all the same selection, NS10s, Barefoots.
Whatever you need.
What was the other one we were talking about?
Genelex.
Yeah, Genelex. I mean, really.
I have the same pair of the Meyer HD ones.
Oh yeah, HD ones. I use those too. Old school.
The same exact pair that I've had since I started using Pro Tools.
Is that right?
And to me, I just know that sound so well. So that's like my go-to equivalent of like an NS10 or something. I guess as far as what I recognize and stuff. But I like the MKs a lot too. I like it.
Hey, Kevin, why are there so many metal genres? There's like 8,000 million. You got death metal, then you got happy death metal, then you got sad death metal, then you got death metal from Sweden. Then it's too much. It's too much.
So, I mean, as Kane kind of alluded to, I mean, I included myself in his description. I'm not necessarily the metal guy that people think I am. I love it, and I do it, and I do it as well as I can. But really, the value I bring is I don't bring the heaviness, really. The bands already have that in spades that I work with. I just try to bring a little bit of the musicality, trying to capitalize on everything they're doing and make it more pleasing for people who might not like it normally.
Okay.
And which is
so you're more a happy metal guy. Don't know.
My artist, I'm a more happy metal guy, but my artist would never want to take that credit or blame.
How do you get the buzzy guitar sound in metal? You know
you know what?
When you have to do it yourself, because normally
Well, one of the guys that really kind of defined that a little bit is a guy named Vinnie Paul, who is Dimebag's brother. But those two guys, I don't know really who did it, other than the story that Vinnie tells me or told me was, I'll tell you what, you never want to have buzzy guitars, you dip 1K. Just enormously. You dip 1K out of your track, you're left with the sizzle, you're left with the bottom.
I never thought about that.
Not only but and here's the thing, and this is how music evolves and the sound evolves, once they did that and they found their definable guitar sound, well, all of a sudden you have to have the kick drum poking out above that. So then you turn 10K all the way up and take the 1K down the kick drum too.
Well, I thought it was just that orange MXR pedal, the heavy metal pedal. I thought that's what it was. But
well, guys can do it differently with different pedals, different amps. The good thing about all those great guitar players is, those guys are passionate about what they do. And
I love the sound.
They will find a different way of doing the same thing. And again, well, now it's a little easier to find YouTube tutorial videos and stuff, but a lot of times in those days, you just had to kind of make it up.
Figure it out.
Figure it out.
Yeah. Do you,
go ahead.
I was going to say, do you, and before you get to batter's box, do you think is there a Churko signature? Do people come to you and say, I'm coming to you for X, or I'm coming to you for Y, or...
Yeah.
What is it?
I'd have to say that there is.
What is it?
In fact, I can tell you, because I read the blabbermouth online. So I know what they think.
Now I know what it is.
Oh, well, what some people think. But, I think what I just said for me personally, and probably for Kane, Kane and I are a little different, and that's why it's great when we work on the same project, because I am more sort of, let's call myself regular rock guy, and he's more sort of alt rock guy. He's just a younger guy. He'll stick it through a buzz pedal and just not even put it into an amp and record that. So we have a bit of the yin and yang when we work on the same things, which isn't a lot these days. But I think ultimately that I'm still about the song. I think that when the A&R or the manager guy talks to me, they say, I got these great bunch of guys, talented people. We want the songs to be better. Can you help out with that?
Fix these up.
And but that's not talking about my sonic sound, because also we've kind of defined a different kind of drum sound, I believe, over the years too, because we're using our own samples. We've created them over time. I'm a drummer, so I always took pride in that and focused on that. And we've seen the radio. I'm the radio guy too, right? So I want to make music for a lot of people. So I'm not a niche metal guy at all. I can't even tell you what most of those metal niches are. And I think that's hurt metal. And I think that's hurt music. The same way that he was talking about. I think it should be more inclusive. I think it should be more open.
Exclusionary thing we were just talking about.
Yeah. Think about how some of the hip hop stuff and some of the pop stuff has come about is by cameos and collaborations, and let's open up. I want your audience. You can have my audience, and let's just make this bigger.
Together.
Let's make this bigger than the both of us.
That's absolutely right.
And whereas I'm not putting anything against it, but it country's a little bit like that too. But it ain't country. Well, it doesn't. I'm kind of the guy that always compares music to movies. And
to what?
To movies. To movies. Not everybody wants to just go see sci-fi movies. Sometimes you put a western in there. Sometimes you put an indie black and white film in there. Sometimes you have just a dramedy kind of thing. And for me, music for me is like that. And I go home, I listen to Chet Baker. I don't just put on the latest metal record, which I might love, but I hear that all day, and I'll go listen to some Chopin or some Chet Baker or something to mellow me out and offset the violence of the day.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's me, and that's most of the people I know. And my daughter's kind of a good kind of gauge of that too, because she's not a musician, and so she listens to music like, let's call them a regular people or a regular person,
like a civilian.
Yeah. And she might like a country song today, a pop song tomorrow, a hip hop song the next day, a heavy rock song the next day, and it's just whatever makes her feel good at the time. And I think most people are like that. They're not. I don't think the gatekeepers have to be as strict as they've been in the past.
People have to evolve.
Yeah,
you have to move and groove,
and people have to be given permission to like that stuff too. That's also a weird thing.
There's no shame in it.
Yeah,
I
don't have guilty pleasures, just pleasure.
And you know what? I think the way you stand out sometimes when you're a creative person is to be open to those influences, to find that thing that isn't there yet. And you got to search for that. You can't search for that in a small box.
Yeah.
You know, once you get done with that box, there's no place to go. And speaking of box, how about that
What
segue?
a segue.
This will be our first ever dual batter's box.
All right.
So your challenge is to just knock Dave's block off. So don't be gentle. Throw back fast, hard, heavy, and there's no mistakes.
Is it the first thing we think of?
Yeah, and short answer, one,
And
2 words.
It may not even apply.
Are we starting with him first, or?
You're going with, just go instinctively.
Yeah.
I'll monitor and make sure it goes back and forth.
Reverb.
Hardly ever necessary.
Hate it.
Cool.
Kick drums.
Love them as loud as possibly can be.
Nice.
Difficult.
Oh, man. Guitar pedals.
Fun.
Mostly not needed.
Vocals.
Lots of them.
Fun.
Bass.
Something I love playing.
Programmed.
There you go. There's the yin and the yang right
I
there.
love playing bass. Man. It's one of my most
Yeah,
fun.
I'm gonna help you out here, Kev. Room mics.
M50s.
Try that one, youngin. Bzz, time's up.
Far and near.
Okay, that's good.
Fave virtual guitar amp.
Gosh darn. Helix.
Pod Farm 2, which I'm really upset with Line 6 for not continuing to make because all my sessions, I can't open them anymore. Thank you very much.
Okay.
How's that for one word?
Kane, what's your favorite mix your father's ever done? Your favorite record your father's ever done?
Sound of Silence was a masterpiece.
Bzz, that's a winner. And you for him.
Have I answered this question before? Wait, I gotta be quiet. I'm going to say "Face Everything and Rise" by Papa Roach. I think that was a mix that I used to compare myself to at that point, instead of him just comparing to stuff.
Good job. At the Hideout, I was looking at his shirt to see if it was right.
I started cheating.
What piece of gear would you consider the cheapest piece of gear you've ever used on a record that came out?
Ooh.
Well, he's thinking, you tell me.
Well, I mean, 57, the most ultimate mic of all time, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I mean, for under $100, I can do a whole record with that one.
I was thinking of 57, but I thought that was boring, so...
I'm all boring.
Wow, a little rivalry
I
here.
love a 57, but, how excited is that?
It's definitely not exciting. Until you record it.
That's it.
They did good.
They did great. That was one of my most fun ones we've done in a while.
You look shelled. Now, as you may notice, and we alluded to at the beginning of the show, the Churkos have this amazing multiplier effect. Multiples, awards and records and platinum and so forth, and family members. So we're joined now by Chloe, another Kane in the Churko clan. Hi, Chloe. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Are you nervous and don't know why you're here?
A little bit, yeah.
Gotcha. That's cool. It looks like it's very good. Well, your dad had an email exchange with myself and Talisha and a few others, and I'll let him take it from there.
Okay, well, I just thought we'd take this opportunity to thank you for everything you've done, but also because, I've had different managers in the past, some good, some bad. I've liked most of them, though. Great dudes. But really, the only manager who's ever managed me as well as Chloe is Chloe. So I decided to take this opportunity to say you're my official manager at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you accept. It's not, it's something you can say no to, because you know how hourly I can get, as you found out last Friday. But seriously, I mean, she runs my studio. She runs all my businesses. She reads a P&L better than anybody I know. She chases money. She, helps clients out. Really, somebody who's really, for 5 years at least now, been working really hard behind the scenes. For 7 years.
That's the manager in you. Yeah,
Working hard behind the scenes, and I thought it was time to give you your due and not just have you as a worker be an employee, but as a partner.
Great, I really appreciate that. I thought I was already doing that, but I'll take it.
It's like a proposal. Are you going to say yes? Or?
I accept.
But now it's official, so nobody has to contact me anymore. Contact her.
That's right.
So now, who can fire who? You can fire him, but he can't fire you, or vice versa?
I think he'll always be my client.
Well, technically, the manager signs the artist, so I guess just send me a contract and I'll see what I think.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
That's, we were talking off camera about, leadership qualities and so forth, and you're sort of born with them and then they develop over time. Is that the case with you? And
Yeah, I would say I've always been a leader. I was captain of the teams that I was on, and then working high school jobs. I was saying I would start entry level, and I was a manager by the second week, or a shift lead, or
Basically,
whatever.
she likes bossing people around.
I'm good at bossing people around, but I call it nicely bossing people around. They don't know they're being bossed around. I'm a good. I can trick you into thinking you're being bossed around or not being bossed around.
I bet if times call for you being tough, you can do that too as well.
Yeah, it definitely can be tough. Yeah, I've definitely gotten better with that. I tell my staff I'm kind of a grumpy old studio manager now, which is worked
It's a skill.
out well. It is.
It is a skill. Yeah.
And she doesn't let me talk to anybody, the clients or anything like that now, because I'll just give the studio away and she'll.
Jeez, I wonder what that sounds like. Oh my God.
Well, you know the drill then, right?
Oh, do I ever know the drill?
And you know how many things that you do, right? It's not just about getting a client or signing a contract or getting paid. It's a lot of things. I mean,
a lot of things.
This show, from what I understand, was a little bit of, you were there from the start and maybe possibly your idea.
That's true.
And that's what I encourage, is thinking outside of the box and creating something where there hasn't been anything, and she can do that.
Oh, good for you. Well, ultimately, as we share a spot. It has an interesting set of dynamics and pressures, and when you win, it's an amazing thing. And for people like us, when you lose, it pisses you off. Like, it's not something I ever settle comfortably with, and you always want to kind of adjust the ball game and have a team that really works like a team. There's a lot of those dynamics that make you better. But then when you add family to it, that's an extra set of dynamics that some people don't survive. So for your dad to, because I got to tell you something, I'll share a little dad stuff with you. The pride in his email was evident.
Yeah.
It was super evident how cool it was and how proud he is of Kane and so forth. I'm sure you guys are proud of him. So from Pensado's Place and for our audience, we want to congratulate you, wish you well. We're going to check on you in about a year or so and say, how are you doing? Come back on the show. And then you have to come out by yourself. Will you do that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
See,
definitely.
she's smiling now. Let's see if she's smiling a year
Tomorrow. It's tomorrow. Lots of good stuff coming up before we say goodbye.
Yes.
Like what?
Yeah.
What kind of stuff?
Well, we just finishing a record with the band called In This Moment. That won't be out till August. We have a few cuts on the new Skillet record, which is coming out in August. I have the new Hellyeah record coming out really quick. With the first singles, they had a street single, but they have like an actual single, radio single in, I believe, June, maybe even May. And then there's a lot of emphasis on that, and that record's a great album. So those are the main things right now. Anything else? Oh, plus I got a new, when you talked about music's merging, one of the projects that we had worked on past 3 years is a merging of country with rock.
Oh, nice.
So I have a new artist called Corey Marks that we signed to our company first, and then we upsold to a label, and it's Five Finger Death Punch meets Merle Haggard.
Oh, wow.
So if you can imagine that.
How cool is that, though?
It's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of fun to do.
Just that you think that way.
Very fun to write for, and totally different kind of thing, but using still our skill set of maybe making country a little heavier or something.
And then you had, I think 2018, I think you mixed the single of the year, right?
Yeah, as
Bad Wolves?
Zombie by Bad Wolves.
Yeah.
I mixed and did additional production on that and stuff.
Good for you.
And that was it was a huge song. Definitely a big thing in my career.
So the good news is your clients are working.
Clients are working.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure to have you. You made the trip down. We love that hopefully you enjoy Pensado's Place and found it worthwhile to go do. We appreciate the support.
Fantastic.
You guys make our show better, and thanks for coming. Dave, take us home.
Hey guys, I'm gonna do something a little different. I say that once in a while. I really want you to listen to some of the records that these guys do. The Disturbed record, Evolution, Sounds of Silence is a game changer, and I don't think anybody else could have done it other than someone that has a grasp on how music should feel and how it should make you feel. The sounds, the engineering, all of those are techniques to get you to feel something, and I felt something with that. And then on the Five Finger Death Punch record, Gone Away, the cover of the Offspring song, incredible. So look them up, listen to their music, and they come from a background through Kevin via Mutt Lange, and so their stuff feels good, and that's something that we need in today's culture. So we'll see you next week.